Imagine a man who, by the age of 32, had conquered more land than any human being in history. From the cold mountain passes of Greece to the scorching deserts of Persia, from the banks of the Nile to the edge of India. A man so feared that entire kingdoms surrendered without a single battle, and so loved that his soldiers wept when he asked them to stop. And then, without warning, without a wound from any enemy blade, without losing a single war, he died. Just like that, in 10 mysterious days, the greatest conqueror the world had ever seen, gone, and no one truly knows why. This is not a myth. This is not a legend. This is the real, astonishing, almost unbelievable true story of Alexander the Great. Alexander was born in Pella, Macedonia, a rough northern kingdom that the sophisticated Greek city-states looked down upon as barely civilized. His father, Philip II, was a military genius who had transformed Macedonia into the dominant power in Greece through sheer tactical brilliance and ruthless will. His mother, Olympias, was fierce, deeply spiritual, and absolutely terrifying, a woman who kept snakes in her bed as part of her religious rituals and told her son, from the time he could understand words, that his real father was not Philip but Zeus himself. Whether she believed it or was simply engineering her son's sense of destiny, it worked. Alexander grew up convinced he was meant for something beyond ordinary greatness. When news arrived that his father had won another great battle, the other boys celebrated. Alexander went quiet. When his friends asked why, he told them plainly, "My father will conquer everything and leave nothing great for me to do." He was 10 years old. Philip recognized his son's extraordinary mind and hired Aristotle, the greatest philosopher alive, as Alexander's personal tutor. For 3 years, Aristotle taught him philosophy, medicine, science, poetry, and the art of reasoning. Alexander carried an annotated copy of Homer's Iliad on every campaign of his life, keeping it under his pillow each night, alongside a dagger, wisdom and strength always within reach. There's one story from his teenage years that captures everything about who he was. A horse dealer arrived at the Macedonian court with a magnificent black stallion that no one could ride. One by one, the kingdom's best horsemen were thrown off violently. Philip was about to send the animal away when 16-year-old Alexander spoke up. "I can ride him." The court laughed. Philip agreed, but only if Alexander would pay for the horse himself if he failed. Alexander had been watching carefully. He noticed what the others had missed. The horse was terrified of its own shadow. Every time someone mounted it, the commotion made the shadow shift and the horse panicked. Alexander quietly turned the stallion to face the sun, so the shadow fell behind it, then stroked its neck and swung onto its back in one smooth motion. The horse bolted and Alexander rode it perfectly, letting the energy burn off before gently bringing it home. Philip had tears in his eyes. He told his son, "Macedonia is too small for you. Find a kingdom worthy of yourself." The horse's name was Bucephalus, and Alexander would ride him into battle for the next 20 years across 3 continents. When Philip was assassinated at his own daughter's wedding, Alexander, just 20 years old, became king. He moved with cold, immediate ruthlessness, eliminating every rival and silencing every threat before his enemies abroad could take advantage of his youth. When Greek city-states tried to break free from Macedonian control, he marched south and destroyed the ancient city of Thebes so completely it served as a permanent warning to the rest of Greece. The message was understood instantly. In 334 BC, he crossed into Asia with roughly 37,000 soldiers, a relatively small force against the Persian Empire, the superpower of the ancient world, which stretched from Egypt to India and had dominated global power for 2 centuries. When his ship touched the Asian shore, Alexander stood at the bow and hurled his spear into the earth, claiming the continent as territory taken by conquest. Then he visited Troy, laid a wreath on the tomb of his hero Achilles, and made absolutely clear what kind of story he intended to write. He defeated the Persians at the Granicus River, nearly dying when 2 Persian nobles attacked him simultaneously, surviving only because his general Cleitus cut off an enemy's sword arm at the last possible second. He then swept through Asia Minor, freed Greek cities from Persian control, and besieged the island fortress of Tyre, spending 7 months building an enormous stone causeway half a mile long into the sea to reach it, doing what everyone called impossible. In Egypt, he was welcomed as a liberator and declared pharaoh. He founded Alexandria on the Egyptian coast, a city that would become one of the greatest centers of learning in human history, still standing today with millions of inhabitants more than 2,000 years later. The final reckoning with the Persian Emperor Darius came at Gaugamela on a wide flat plain in modern Iraq. Darius had chosen open ground deliberately to use his superior numbers, an army perhaps twice the size of Alexander's. The night before the battle, Alexander's veteran general suggested a night attack to neutralize the Persian advantage. Alexander refused. "I will not steal my victory," he said, then went to his tent and slept so soundly his generals had to shake him awake at dawn. His men watched this and took it as a sign from the gods. The battle was over in an afternoon. Alexander drove his cavalry through a gap in the Persian lines directly towards Darius, and for the second time, the emperor of Persia turned his chariot and fled. The largest empire the world had known collapsed because its ruler could not face the 25-year-old charging toward him. Alexander pressed east into Central Asia, through Afghanistan, across freezing mountain ranges, over rivers on inflated animal skins when there were no boats. He crossed the Hindu Kush in the dead of winter. In what is now Afghanistan, he married Roxana, a local noblewoman, which scandalized his Macedonian generals who expected a Greek bride. He ignored them completely. In India, he faced King Porus and over 200 war elephants at the Hydaspes River, the ancient equivalent of an armored tank division. He crossed the river at night during a thunderstorm to mask his movements, attacked from an unexpected direction, and won. When the defeated Porus was brought before him in chains, Alexander asked how he wished to be treated. Porus answered simply, "As a king." Alexander removed the chains, returned his kingdom, and made him an ally. It was one of the most graceful moments of his life. But then his army stopped. Deep in the Punjab, with monsoon rains pouring down and more vast kingdoms beyond the horizon, his soldiers sat down and wept. 11 years, 20,000 miles. They were done. Alexander argued, pleaded, raged. Nothing moved them. He went to his tent for 3 days in silence. When he emerged, he was quiet. He announced they would turn back. For a man who had never accepted defeat in his life, it was a wound that never fully healed. By the time Alexander reached Babylon, he was 32 and visibly worn. The arrow through his lung in India had left permanent damage. He drank more heavily than before, and weeks earlier he had suffered a loss that broke something inside him that war never had. Hephaestion, his closest friend since childhood, the person who understood him better than anyone alive, died suddenly. Alexander lay on his body for an entire day and refused to move. He cut his own hair in mourning, as Achilles had done for Patroclus in the Iliad. He executed Hephaestion's physician for failing to save him. The grief was not ceremonial, it was catastrophic. He arrived in Babylon planning the conquest of Arabia. He attended a banquet, drank heavily, and the next morning a fever came. It didn't break. Over 10 days, he grew weaker and weaker until he lost the ability to speak entirely. His soldiers filed past his bed by the thousands to say goodbye. He greeted each of them with a faint movement of his eyes. When asked to whom he left his empire, his last words were either "to the strongest," or a name so close to the Greek word for strongest that scholars still argue over which he meant. Then he was gone. 3 theories have competed for 2,000 years. The first is typhoid fever, worsened by his alcohol use and the contaminated waters of Babylon, consistent with the ancient records of his symptoms. The second is poison. Ancient sources themselves raise it, and Alexander had powerful enemies within his own inner circle who feared what he was becoming. The suspected substance was a toxic plant preparation, allegedly transported in a mule's hoof, one of the few containers thought to resist its corrosive properties. No physical evidence has ever been found, but it has never been ruled out either. The third theory is the most disturbing. A researcher proposed that Alexander may have suffered from Guillain-Barré syndrome, a neurological disorder causing progressive paralysis. In severe cases, a patient can appear completely dead, with no detectable breathing or pulse while still being fully conscious and aware. Ancient observers noted with awe that Alexander's body showed no decomposition for 6 days after his death, interpreting it as proof of his divinity. The modern explanation is darker. He wasn't decomposing because he wasn't dead. He was paralyzed, aware, and buried alive. We will probably never know the truth. His tomb has never been found. His generals tore the empire apart within a generation. His son was murdered as a child, his wife executed. Everything he built with his hands was dismantled by the people who had helped him build it. But the idea of him could not be killed. The Greek language he spread shaped civilizations. The cities he founded still stand. The Library of Alexandria he created preserved the knowledge of the ancient world for centuries. Julius Caesar wept before a statue of Alexander at 32, the same age Alexander had died, feeling he had accomplished nothing by comparison. Napoleon studied his campaigns obsessively. His name appears in the Quran. He is a hero in Persian poetry. Kandahar in Afghanistan carries his name to this day, from Iskander, the Persian form of Alexander. He burned through the world like a comet, brilliant, terrifying, brief. The boy who feared his father would leave him nothing to conquer ended up conquering more than any human being before or since. And then, at 32, in Babylon, surrounded by men who had followed him to the ends of the earth, he simply stopped. No grand final battle, no heroic last stand, just a fever, 10 days, and silence. But 2,300 years later, we are still living in a world he helped shape. And that is not a small thing for a man who only had 32 years.